The setting sun cast long shadows across the Grand Canyon's majestic ridges as Shane Lowry held little Lily Parker in his arms. Her frail body trembled against his chest, her once vibrant eyes now dulled by months of aggressive treatments. But for a brief moment, as the golden light bathed the ancient rock formations, Shane saw something he hadn't seen in months. A genuine smile spreading across Lily's pale face. "Is this really happening, Mr. Lowry?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the gentle canyon breeze. "Or am I dreaming again?" Shane fought back tears as he tightened his embrace. "It's real, Lily. I promised you, didn't I?" 3 months earlier, Shane had been at the peak of his career. The Irish golfer had just qualified for the PGA Championship when his agent handed him a letter that would change everything. Written in wobbly purple crayon on sunflower-decorated stationery, it was unlike the thousands of fan mail he received. "Dear Mr. Lowry," it read, "my name is Lily. I'm 8 years old, and the doctors say I have 4 months left. I've never seen the Grand Canyon. Mom says we can't afford it. I watch you play golf every Sunday with my dad. You're my hero because you never give up, even when everyone says you can't win." Shane had stared at the letter for hours that night in his hotel room. The memory of his sister Erin, lost to the same cruel disease just 14 months prior, came flooding back. Before she died, he had made her a promise that he had kept to himself until now. If he could ever make a difference in the life of a child fighting cancer, he would do it, no matter the cost. The next morning, Shane walked into his agent's office and announced a decision that would send shockwaves through the professional golf world. He was taking an indefinite break from competition, effective immediately. "You're doing what?" his agent had shouted, face turning crimson. "You're throwing away everything we've built for some kid you don't even know? The championship is in 3 weeks." Shane placed Lily's letter on the desk. "Some promises are worth more than trophies, Jack. Some battles matter more than golf." What Shane didn't know then was that his decision would cost him far more than a tournament, and that time was running out much faster than anyone realized. 6 weeks at most, Dr. Reynolds said, her expression grave as she studied Lily's latest scans. The child's parent, Tom and Sarah Parker, clung to each other in the sterile hospital consultation. "The cancer has spread more aggressively than we anticipated." 3,000 miles away, Shane was facing his own battle. His main sponsor, Golf Tech, had just pulled their $2 million contract. The sports media was ablaze with speculation, gambling, substance abuse, mental breakdown. No one could fathom why a golfer at the height of his career would suddenly walk away. "You have 72 hours to reconsider," his agent warned during a tense phone call. "After that, there's no coming back from this, Shane. Nobody torpedoes their career at 35 and recovers." Shane ended the call and stared at the photo of Lily he kept on his phone. She had lost all her hair now. Her sunflower-patterned headscarf couldn't hide the toll the treatments had taken. Yet somehow, she still smiled in every picture she sent him. Planning the trip was a logistical nightmare. Getting medical clearance for a child in Lily's condition to travel across the country seemed impossible. Every specialist Shane consulted delivered the same verdict: too risky, too difficult, simply not feasible. Then came the call that nearly destroyed everything. At 2:17 a.m., Shane's phone lit up with Tom Parker's number. "Lily's in ICU," Tom's voice cracked. "She had a seizure. The doctors, they're saying—" He couldn't finish the sentence. Shane booked the first flight to Phoenix, his mind racing. As the plane took off, a text message from his former caddy flashed on his screen. "Have you lost your mind? Williams just took your spot in the championship. Your career is over." Shane turned off his phone. In that moment, only one thing mattered: a promise made to a dying girl. When he arrived at Phoenix Children's Hospital, Shane wasn't prepared for what he saw. Lily, now connected to multiple machines, looked smaller than he remembered from their video call. Her sunflower toy clutched weakly in one hand. She seemed to be fading before his eyes. "She's been asking for you," Sarah whispered, her eyes red from crying. "She made us promise not to let her go until she saw you." Shane approached the bed slowly, fighting to maintain his composure. Lily's eyes fluttered open, recognition dawning slowly. "You came," she said, her voice barely audible. "Wild horses couldn't keep me away, sunshine," Shane replied, using the nickname he'd given her. What happened next would be described by the medical staff as nothing short of miraculous. Whether it was determination, hope, or simply the human spirit's remarkable resilience, Lily began to stabilize. Not recover, that was beyond possibility, but stabilize enough the conversation about the Grand Canyon could resume. That evening, as Shane sat alone in the hospital cafeteria, his phone rang. The caller ID showed a name he hadn't spoken to in years, Cameron Reed, his former rival on the professional circuit. "I heard what you're trying to do," Cameron said without preamble. "My daughter had leukemia 3 years ago. She survived. I owe the universe one." Shane listened in stunned silence as Cameron continued. "I have a private jet and connections with a medical transport team. We can make this happen, but we need to move fast. How soon can you be ready?" For the first time in weeks, Shane felt something resembling hope. But, as he would soon discover, getting to the Grand Canyon would be only the beginning of their challenges. The story broke on ESPN first. Golf star Shane Lowry abandons championship dreams for dying fan. Within hours, the narrative split in 2 directions. Half the world hailed him as a hero. The other half labeled him a fool. His former mentor called it career suicide. His father wouldn't take his calls. What none of them knew was the real reason behind Shane's decision. The promise he had made to his sister Erin as she lay dying in a Dublin hospital bed. "Promise me you'll live for more than just golf, Shane," she had whispered. "Promise you'll find something worth sacrificing for." Now, as Shane watched a team of specialists prepare Lily for the journey of her life, he understood what Erin had meant. The medical transport plane Cameron had arranged was essentially a flying ICU, equipped with everything necessary to keep Lily stable during the 3-hour flight to the Grand Canyon. "We'll have a 90-minute window once we land," Dr. Patel, the lead physician, explained. "After that, it becomes exponentially more dangerous for her." The media had gotten wind of the story, and a small crowd of reporters gathered outside the hospital. Shane's agent had sent a final message. "The board meeting is tomorrow. They're voting to terminate all your endorsements. Last chance to walk away from this madness." Shane deleted the message without responding. Inside Lily's hospital room, a different kind of preparation was underway. Tom was showing his daughter photos of the Grand Canyon on his tablet. "Will we see the sunset, like in the pictures?" Lily asked, her eyes brighter than they had been in days. "That's the plan, sunshine," Shane answered from the doorway. "We'll see the most beautiful sunset you can imagine." What Shane didn't tell her was that the weather forecast was predicting thunderstorms across Arizona, the kind that could ground their flight indefinitely. As they prepared to leave for the airport, Dr. Reynolds pulled Shane aside. "You should know," she said quietly, that the excitement alone could be too much for her sister to handle. She might not make it to the canyon at all. Shane nodded silently. He had known the risks from the beginning. The flight itself was tense. Every patch of turbulence sent the medical team into high alert. Halfway to their destination, Lily's oxygen levels dropped dangerously low. As the medical team worked frantically to stabilize her, Shane knelt beside her stretcher. "Hey, sunshine, stay with me," he pleaded, holding her small hand. "I was thinking about what we'll do when we get there. Would you like to hear a secret?" Lily's eyes focused on him, and she gave an almost imperceptible nod. "My sister, Erin, she loved sunflowers too," Shane continued, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "She told me they're special because they always turn to face the sun, no matter how dark the day gets. Just like you, Lily. You're my sunflower." Whether it was Shane's words or the medical intervention, Lily's vitals began to improve. As they started their descent toward the small airstrip near the Grand Canyon, the pilot delivered unwelcome news. The storm system was moving in faster than expected. They would have even less time on the ground than planned. And then came the moment that nearly broke Shane completely. As they prepared to transfer Lily to the waiting ambulance, she looked up at him and whispered, "Mr. Lowry, I need to tell you something important. The Grand Canyon isn't just for me to see. I came to do something there, something special." Before Shane could ask what she meant, they were rushing toward the canyon, racing against both the gathering storm clouds and Lily's failing body. The medical team had vetoed the original viewing spot, too remote, too far from emergency service. Instead, they were headed to Mather Point, where a helicopter could land if necessary. Even with this compromise, Dr. Patel made it clear they were operating far outside normal protocol. 45 minutes, he told Shane firmly. Not a minute more. The storm clouds loomed ominously on the horizon as their small convoy reached the canyon's edge. Park rangers had cleared a path, holding back curious onlookers. A few journalists had somehow gotten wind of their arrival and waited at a distance, cameras ready. Transferring Lily from the ambulance to the specialized wheelchair was an ordeal that left her gasping for breath. Sarah covered her daughter with blankets despite the warm air. Lily's body could no longer regulate its temperature properly. "Do you think you can make it a little further, Sunshine?" Shane asked gently, noticing Lily's struggle. To everyone's surprise, Lily straightened in her chair. "I have to," she said, with unexpected firmness. "I have to get closer to the edge." Tom exchanged worried glances with the medical team, but Dr. Patel gave a reluctant nod. "Just a few more yards, but that's it." As they approached the railing, the full majesty of the Grand Canyon opened before them. The setting sun painted the ancient rock formations in brilliant oranges and purple, shadows deepening in the vast chasms below. For a long moment, everyone fell silent, even the medical team momentarily forgetting their urgency. "It's more beautiful than the pictures," Lily whispered, her face transformed by wonder. Shane knelt beside her wheelchair. "Was it worth the journey?" Lily nodded, then turned to look at him with sudden intensity. "Now I need to do the important part. Can you help me stand up?" Dr. Patel immediately objected. "Absolutely not. Her blood pressure—" "Please," Lily interrupted, her voice stronger than it had been in weeks. "This is why I came." Something in her expression silenced all objections. With extreme care, Shane and Tom helped Lily to her feet at the canyon's edge. The wind had picked up, carrying the distant rumble of thunder. From her pocket, Lily withdrew a small fabric pouch, tightly sealed. "What's that, Sunshine?" Shane asked. Lily's face was transformed by a serene smile. "Sunflower seed. Hundreds of them. I need to plant them here." Her parents exchanged confused glances, but Shane understood immediately. His sister Erin had done something similar at the cliffs of Mohair before she died. "The park doesn't allow," began one of the rangers, but Shane silenced him with a look. "This is happening," he said simply. "Some rules matter less than others." With trembling hands, Lily opened the pouch. "In science class, we learned that sunflower seeds can grow almost anywhere, even in rock cracks if there's a little soil." A gust of wind swept across the canyon as she cast the first handful of seeds into the void. Most would land on barren rock, never to germinate. Some might find purchase in crevices where dust and soil had accumulated. The probability of any surviving was minimal. But that wasn't the point, and everyone present knew it. As Lily released her seeds to the wind, she recited something she had clearly rehearsed. "Even when I'm gone, something of me will try to grow here, something beautiful." There wasn't a dry eye among the group. Even Dr. Patel turned away, pretending to check his equipment. Suddenly, Lily's legs gave out. Shane caught her before she could fall, lifting her gently back into her wheelchair. Her face had gone alarmingly pale, her breathing labored. "We need to go now," Dr. Patel said urgently, already preparing an injection. As they rushed back toward the ambulance, the first raindrops began to fall. The storm was arriving sooner than expected, threatening their departure window. Lily's condition deteriorated rapidly during the drive back to the airstrip, requiring emergency intervention twice. On the flight back, as Lily slept under heavy sedation, Shane stared out the window at the thunderclouds below. Had it been worth the risk? Had it been fair to put Lily through such an ordeal for what might have been a foolish gesture? He wouldn't know the answer months to come. I'll expand Chapter 5 with more details while keeping the emotional impact. Here's the expanded final chapter in English. Lily Parker died on a Tuesday morning, 3 weeks after their Grand Canyon journey. The autumn sun had just begun to filter through the hospital blind, casting golden stripe across her peaceful face. She passed without pain, her sunflower toy clutched in one hand and the framed photo of her at the canyon's edge in the other. The doctors said she had held on far longer than anyone expected, as if she had been waiting for something only she understood. The funeral was held in a small chapel on the outskirts of Phoenix. White lilies and bright sunflowers adorned the tiny casket. Sarah's idea, a celebration of her daughter's spirit, rather than a mourning of her departure. Shane stood at the back, his tall frame conspicuous, even as he tried to blend into the shadow. His presence caused a ripple of whispers among the attendees. The famous golfer whose career had imploded in such spectacular fashion was now a cautionary tale in sports circles. The service was simple but heartbreaking. Lily's third-grade teacher read a poem the child had written just months before her diagnosis, an innocent meditation on sunflowers and sunshine that left even the stoic pastor wiping his eyes. A slideshow played, showing Lily before cancer had claimed her hair and vitality, riding a bike, building sandcastles, laughing with her gap-toothed smile. The final image was from the Grand Canyon, Lily in her wheelchair, face illuminated with wonder as she cast seeds into the vast expanse below. After the mourners dispersed, Tom approached Shane in the parking lot, his eyes red-rimmed but dry. He carried a small package wrapped in sunflower-patterned paper. "She worked on this the last week," he said, his voice hoarse from grief. "Made us promise you'd get it. Said it important." Shane took the package with trembling hand. "Tom, Don't," Tom interrupted. "Just don't say you're sorry. You gave her something no one else could. Her last days had purpose because of you." Sarah joined them, her face composed despite the fresh grief. "The doctors said she shouldn't have lasted another day after the canyon. She gave us 3 more weeks. Good weeks, Shane. She talked about those sunflower seeds every day, making us promise to check on them in the spring." Inside the package was Lily's sunflower headscarf, carefully folded, and a handwritten note on her distinctive purple paper. The handwriting was shakier than in her first letter, but unmistakable hers. "Dear Mr. Lowry, thank you for helping my seeds grow. Mom says some might actually live if they find the right cracks with dirt. I think they will. Some things are supposed to grow no matter what. That's what you taught me. Now it's time for you to plant your own seed. Don't waste your sunshine. Love, Lily P.S. I told everyone at the hospital that you're still a champion, just a different kind." Shane returned to Ireland the following day. He rented a small cottage on the cliffs of Moher, not far from where he had scattered his sister Erin's ashes. The golf world's reaction to his extended absence had shifted from confusion to derision. His agent had stopped calling altogether. Former friends on the tour treated his name like a cautionary tale, the promising career that imploded for reasons no one fully understood. Lowry's canyon meltdown became shorthand for professional self-sabotage. Sports psychologists referenced his case in seminars. Equipment sponsors used his contract termination as leverage in negotiations with other players. Remember what happened to Lowry? For 6 months, Shane lived in near isolation. He grew a beard, took long walks along the cliffs, and ignored the occasional tabloid photographer who discovered his whereabouts. His clubs gathered dust in the cottage corner. When locals recognized him at the village pub, he neither confirmed nor denied his identity. The man who had once commanded attention on international broadcasts had become a ghost. Then, on what would have been Lily's 9th birthday, April 17th, Shane's phone pinged with an email notification. It was from Tom Parker, sent at precisely midnight. The subject line read simply, "She was right." The email contained no text, just a photograph taken at the Grand Canyon. Shane stared at the screen in disbelief, then in wonder, then in something approaching reverence. The image showed a small cluster of sunflowers growing from a nearly invisible crevice in the Grand Canyon wall, their bright yellow faces turned toward the sun, defying all odds. The geotag placed them exactly where Lily had cast her seed. Accompanying the photo was a brief note from a park ranger. "Mr. Parker, as requested, we've been monitoring the area. This growth was first observed 3 weeks. Quite remarkable given the condition. Thought you'd want to know." The next day, Shane shaved his beard, packed a single bag, and boarded a flight to Phoenix. He hadn't set foot on American soil since Lily's funeral. The media, long since diverted to fresher stories, took no notice of his arrival. He rented a modest car at the airport and drove the 4 hours to the Grand Canyon in contemplative silence. The landscape grew increasingly familiar as he approached. The red earth, the vast sky, the sense of ancient permanence that made human concerns seem momentary and small. At the park entrance, he asked for Ranger Martinez, the name mentioned in Tom's email. A middle-aged woman with sun-weathered skin and kind eyes greeted him with professional courtesy, showing no recognition of his name or face. "Mr. Parker mentioned you might come," she said, checking her logbook. "I can take you to the observation site in about an hour if you're willing to wait." Shane nodded, grateful for the anonymity. "They're really there? The sunflowers? It wasn't Photoshop or something?" Ranger Martinez's smile was genuine. Oh, they're there, all right. Shouldn't be, mind you. Helianthus annus isn't native to this environment, and the conditions are about as hostile as they get for that species. But nature surprises us sometimes. The hike to the observation point was more strenuous than Shane remembered. His once athletic frame had softened during his months of seclusion. By the time they reached the railing where he had stood with Lily, his breathing was labored. There, Ranger Martinez pointed to a section of the canyon wall about 30 feet below the viewing platform. See that patch of yellow? At first, Shane couldn't spot them. Then, as his eyes adjusted, he saw them. 6 sturdy sunflower stalks emerging from the most improbable location, their golden petals vibrant against the red canyon walls. They had somehow found purchase in a narrow crevice where wind-blown soil had accumulated over centuries, creating just enough of a growing medium to support life. How is this possible? Shane whispered, more to himself than to the ranger. She shrugged, professional yet compassionate. Scientifically speaking, it's a confluence of unlikely factors. There must have been just enough soil, just enough water from that thunderstorm that passed through after your visit. The seeds found shelter from the worst of the elements. It's rare, but it happened. And they'll survive through the summer? Probably not all of them, she admitted, but they've already produced seeds of their own. Some will find their way into other crevices. Some might actually establish themselves permanently. Life is remarkably persistent, Mr. Lowry. Shane startled at the use of his name. Ranger Martinez smiled. My brother plays golf. He showed me that article about you and the little girl with cancer. Not many would have done what Shane stayed until sunset, watching as the flowers turned their faces to follow the light, just as he had described to Lily during their flight. The tourists came and went around him, most oblivious to the miracle occurring just beyond the railing. A few noticed the sunflowers and pointed, taking photos of the anomaly, never knowing the story behind their impossible existence. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the canyon in the same fiery hues Lily had witnessed, Shane made his decision. 2 weeks later, a press conference was hastily arranged at the Phoenix Convention Center. The sports media, intrigued by the sudden reappearance of a once prominent figure, assembled with skepticism rather than enthusiasm. Shane Lowry, once ranked 5th in the world, now an asterisk in golf's recent history, stepped onto the platform wearing a custom-designed white shirt with a small sunflower embroidered over the heart. Some of you have wondered where I've been, he began, his voice steadier than it had been in months. Others have questioned my decision, my priority, my commitment to the sport that has defined my life since childhood. The room was silent, every reporter suddenly aware they were witnessing something beyond the usual sports narrative of redemption or comeback. Today, I'm announcing my return to professional golf, Shane continued, but with a purpose beyond tournament and ranking. I'm launching the Sunflower Foundation, dedicated to fulfilling the final wishes of children with terminal illnesses. He gestured to Tom and Sarah Parker, who sat quietly in the front row. This foundation is built on a promise I made to my sister before she died, and on the legacy of an extraordinary 8-year-old named Lily Parker, who taught me what real courage looks like. A slideshow began behind him, carefully selected images of Lily at the Grand Canyon, and most strikingly, the recent photos of the sunflowers growing from the canyon wall. A reporter raised her hand, her expression skeptical. You were at the top of your game when you walked away from the PGA champion. Many say you threw away your career for what amounted to a publicity stunt. Your ranking has dropped to 347. How do you respond to that? The old Shane might have bristled at the question. The new one simply nodded in acknowledgement. I understand that perspective, he said quietly. I didn't win any championships last year. I lost sponsors, ranking points, momentum, everything that seemed important at the time. But I gained something my sister tried to teach me before she died, that some promises are more valuable than any trophy. He paused, then added, sometimes we plant seeds never knowing if they'll grow. Lily taught me that the planting itself is what mattered. When asked about his competitive goals, Shane's answer surprised the assembled press. I'm not here to reclaim rankings or titles, though I'll compete to the best of my ability. The foundation will receive 1/3 of any winnings and all of my endorsement fees. Every tournament becomes a platform to share this message. The skepticism in the room began to shift. as Shane outlined the Foundation's mission, not just granting wishes, but documenting them, creating legacies that extended beyond the children's short lives. The first beneficiary would be 10-year-old Marcus Diaz, a baseball enthusiast with advanced leukemia, whose dream was to design a community baseball field in his underserved Phoenix neighborhood. After the press conference, offers began to trickle in, not from the premium brands that had once competed for Shane's endorsement, but from companies with different value: a medical supply corporation, a children's hospice network, a sustainable clothing brand with a focus on ethical production. His new agent, a soft-spoken woman with experience in nonprofit work, helped him navigate this unfamiliar territory. Shane's return to competition the following month at a minor tournament in Scottsdale was met with moderate interest. His swing was rusty, his putting inconsistent after months away from serious practice. But there was something different in his approach, a patience, a perspective that hadn't been there before. On his golf bag was the new emblem he had designed, a sunflower turned toward the sun, and in his game was a new kind of resilience. He finished 23rd, respectable but unremarkable, yet something had shifted in the narrative. The commentators spoke less about his meltdown and more about the foundation that had already secured funding for 3 children's wishes. By summer, Shane had worked his way back into the top 200, playing each tournament with steady improvement. The sunflower emblem began appearing on cap and shirts among the gallery following. Sports journalists, always hungry for stories beyond the leaderboard, found themselves drawn to the quiet transformation of the Irish golfer who had once seemed destined for greatness, had thrown it all away, and was now rebuilding something entirely different. When autumn came, bringing with it the 1-year anniversary of Lily's journey to the Grand Canyon, Shane took a week away from competition. He returned to the canyon with Tom and Sarah Parker, and together they hiked to a more remote viewing point where a park biologist had reported something remarkable: a second cluster of sunflower, nearly a quarter-mile from the original planting. Seed dispersal, the biologist explained, showing them magnified images of the tiny barbs on sunflower seeds that allow them to hitch rides on wind, water, and passing wildlife. These ones probably traveled on air currents during a storm, found another hospitable crevice. Nature finds a way. Sarah, who had been quiet for most of the visit, suddenly laughed, a sound of surprise and delight that echoed across the canyon. "She planned this, you know," she said, wiping unexpected tears. "Lily was always leaving things behind, little drawings in library book, painted rocks in the park. So people know I was here," she'd say. "These sunflowers, this is so perfectly her." The Sunflower Foundation grew faster than anyone anticipated. Shane's comeback story, not to his former glory, but to something more meaningful, resonated in ways that transcended sport. When he qualified for his first major tournament since his return, the gallery following him wore sunflower pins and temporary tattoos, a growing army of supporters drawn not just to his play, but to his purpose. By the following spring, park rangers at the Grand Canyon reported an unusual phenomenon: clusters of sunflowers blooming in places they had never been seen before, their seeds carried by wind and water, finding purchase in the most unlikely places. Tourists began asking about the canyon sunflower, creating an unexpected conservation narrative about adaptation and resilience. And on the 5th anniversary of Lily's Grand Canyon journey, Shane Lowry stood once again at the original spot where they had scattered those first seeds. Now, a 2-time major champion, achievements that had come later in his career than anyone expected. He had kept his promise in ways neither he nor Lily could have imagined. The Sunflower Foundation had granted wishes for over 300 children, each one leaving their own legacy behind. The original site now hosted more than 20 sunflowers, their bright faces a striking contrast against the ancient red rock. A small, discreet plaque had been installed at the viewing platform, telling Lily's story to the visitors who came to marvel at the botanical anomaly. Shane stood alone at the railing, the late afternoon sun warm on his face. In his pocket was Lily's original letter, now laminated for preservation, its childish handwriting and simple sunflower drawing a reminder of where it all began. "You were right, sunshine," he whispered to the canyon wind, using the nickname he had given her during those difficult hospital days. Some things do keep growing, even after you're gone. A park ranger approached, recognizing him instantly. His face was now familiar to millions as both a champion golfer and the founder of one of the fastest-growing children's charities in the country. "Mr. Lowry, sorry to interrupt, but there's a family here who recognized you. Their daughter is a foundation recipient. Would you mind?" Shane turned to see a thin girl in a wheelchair, perhaps 12 years old, her head wrapped in a sunflower-patterned scarf that was heartbreakingly familiar. Her parents stood behind her, nervous and hopeful. "Actually," Shane said with a genuine smile, "I'd be honored, and I have a story to tell her about this very spot." As he approached the family, the setting sun cast long shadows across the canyon floor, illuminating countless tiny yellow dots that had been invisible in the direct light. Sunflower, hundreds of growing in crevices, crannies throughout the visible landscape, each one a testament to Lily's belief that something beautiful could grow anywhere, if only given the chance. Above them all, a golden-hour sun bathed the canyon in the same warm light that had welcomed Lily years before. Nature's perfect tribute to a child who had understood, perhaps better than most, that life's brevity makes it no less magnificent.